that I hadn't necessarily considered for creating some of the disjointedness. So I just, and KPIs obviously make it really easy to know where we are and how we're measuring. So I want to thank you for these insights, and I'm really. Oop. I'm saying it again. Woo.
All right.
We just wanted to hear the compliments again,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
we hacked, yeah. Thank you, Councillor.
Councillor Kennedy, any comments?
Yeah, through the chair, just I'm excited about seeing the report, like Deputy Mayor Clark said, but I like the idea of, we have some things that most of us around the table will agree that we need to identify. And like you said, an ad hoc committee, what sort of things, can really help us that way. Sometimes committees get doing too many things and get in the weeds and we don't solve any problems. And I think it's just really important, to identify where everything is in the ladder, and and attack it from the top to the bottom. But thank you very much for your time. Twice for me. Thank you.
Councillor Hinchberger.
Switching it up, Mayor. Thanks. Oh, I was ready. Thank you. A couple of questions. One would have been on slide 20, next steps, bullet 2, which is the workshop. So you did a lot of the current state assessment by looking at the 2 major stakeholder groups, but my kind of understanding is the workshop is not really proportionally represented by members of council. And I'm wondering what was the rationale, or what is the rationale behind that? That's my first question.
Yeah, through your worship, it's meant to be a working session to work through some of the things, in detail coming out of this and optioning things out. The idea was to have the mayor as head of council there to inform it as well, so that we could bring back those options and further work it with council, so we could give you something tangible to react to and talk about a short list of options that are on the table to advance the to strengthen the overall governance of the place. So what we'd like to do is to be able to take something before we say these are the final recommendations, to actually say to you, here's where we think we're headed. Let's get you workshopping this and make sure you're comfortable with that before we finalize it. So see it as a 2-step process, Councillor.
So the mayor is a participant or an observer?
He's a participant.
Okay.
Yeah.
The second question I have is, you had slides in there from 2 other comparator municipalities, one being Guelph and one being Saugeen Shores. Is the Saugeen Shores one actually informed by, were you involved in any current state assessment for them, or it was a very high level, just kick the tires and compare them to us?
Oh, so we're quite familiar with Saugeen Shores because we did their service delivery review. We didn't make any tangible recommendations in that service delivery review around their governance, just for clarity. But we did look at them since they are a neighbor to try to look at what they're doing, and we were aware of some of the things they were doing in terms of how do they use their committee of the whole, how they structure ad hoc committees around issues that the council's looking to grapple with, and so we thought we'd present it as a comparator.
Did Strategy Corp have involvement in helping them develop key performance indicators too? Or?
We did, yes.
Okay, thanks.
Councillor Pranger.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. I'd like to echo what some of my fellow councillors have already said in terms of appreciating both the scope and the quality of this report. The way it was explained to us originally, I was actually concerned because it was my understanding that it would simply look at our committee structures. And I was wondering, like, how is this going to be helpful enough to be worth it? And then so to see this report and what it all came out of it, I was actually thrilled. So thank you very much for that. And I too am looking forward to the next steps because I resonate with quite a few of your findings. So thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Kavanaugh.
Thank you for giving me a moment to collect my thoughts there. Just quickly and for clarification, through the chair, under Appendix E, where it outlists the number of staff hours for various community or committees. Several of them are listed as no. I was wondering if you could just explain, sort of give me a definition or an explanation. I only ask because the Kincardine Police Services Board definitely has a staff member present and attending them, but there's no hours recorded there.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, so we got that based on documentation that was provided to us by the municipality. I would imagine this is, based on best efforts to count the number of hours, but it's probably the best estimate. We can update that. We can go back and update that to reflect that there is staff time committed towards the Police Services Board. Thank you.
Counselor Stewart, please.
Well, thank you very much, Mayor, for including me. Thanks, Chris. Great report. The findings were very interesting reading. It's good to know that you had a chance to talk to all my fellow counselors. One of the things that I don't want to go too much into this. I'm looking forward to your recommendations, and I'm also looking forward to some solutions. But one of the things that we need to do as council before the workshop, after the workshop and final report, we have not finished strategic priorities yet. And that's very important because I think you'll see this coming together. If we can get down to 3 to 5, I'm hoping 3, because if I went around the table right now, I would guarantee it'd be all over the map. So we have to have that meeting. I'm hoping, looking at my CAO, that meeting is going to happen. There's going to be a good lively discussion. And by the time Chris and his reports come back, we'll know what our goals, strategic direction and priorities will be. Thank you.
Counselor Blackwell.
Thank you. Through you. I can't really talk to you and turn and talk to my mic. So I will echo everyone's comments that I did really enjoy the report. And I thank our CAO for encouraging us to undertake this process. Something that really came kind of through to me through some of the different things on the agenda item today is I think that this council has heard from the community in the past that there hasn't been maybe enough transparency, that there hasn't been things haven't been operating as functionally as they should. And it does really feel like there's some excellent foundation building happening here. I think that through some of the recommendations that will come through looking at policies, that we're building a very strong foundation that we can actually achieve some of our strategic priorities instead of kind of constantly bumping into walls that we've perhaps constructed ourselves that are actually getting in the way of our work. So I really appreciate that there was, I felt a lot of things that I said in the interview were reflected really well in the report. And I'm quite looking forward to the recommendations and hopefully being able to implementing quite a few of them.
Chris, anything else?
No, thank you very much. If there is subsequent feedback to this meeting, as we said in our interviews with you, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. We're happy to, again, to receive written feedback or to jump on the phone. The next step is to frame out the recommendations and to address the findings that we had in this report. So thank you very much for your time tonight.
So what I just heard you say, I believe, was that following this meeting, when we always have the meeting and after the meeting and people say, oh, I should have told Chris this, there's opportunity yet encouraged for council members to connect with Stratcor to provide comments or feedback from what they've heard tonight too.
Absolutely. Our door is always open. And the reason that is at the end of the day, you get to decide how you want to run your governance. And so hopefully our recommendations are helpful, but we go away and it has to be something, it has to be approaches that you believe in and are committed to executing. So we want to make sure we hear you well and that we factor in your voice into the recommendations that we bring forward.
Okay, thank you very much. You too, Sarah, Hannah, thank you for being here. All right, I'd like to welcome Karen Kiefer, Manager of Community Programs, who will provide an update on our progress in the scrap against Phragmites. This started a long time ago. And we also have online with us Dr. Janice Gilbert, whom Ms. Kiefer will introduce. Hi, Jane.
Thank you. And through the chair, the municipality of Kincardine has been actively involved in Phragmites control work since 2013. And very shortly, you're going to hear and see pictures of what this invasive perennial grass looks like and how it negatively impacts wetlands and beaches. Since 2013, the municipality of Kincardine has spent approximately $290,000 on Phragmites control efforts. This includes backpack spraying and cutting. And there are funds in the 2023 budget for this work to continue. We have been extremely fortunate to have partners with us along the way in our Phragmites control efforts, including the Invasive Phragmites Control Group, Enbridge, Bruce Power, OPG, and Kincardine Residents Against Phragmites. At this time, I would like to welcome and introduce Dr. Janice Gilbert, who will be joining us via Zoom today. Janice is a wetland ecologist and a member of the Invasive Phragmites Control Group and an expert in this field. It has been an absolute pleasure of mine to work with Janice over the years, and Kincardine is very fortunate to have the services of such a knowledgeable and passionate individual throughout this process. I now invite Janice to walk through her presentation highlighting Kincardine's Phragmites control successes over the years and touch on what work still remains to be done.
Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction, Karen, and it's been an absolute pleasure working with you as well. Can you hear me okay? Yeah, great. So I'm going to share my screen and just talk about a number of things. The first thing I would like to do is just start out just a little bit about the Invasive Phragmites Control Center, and then talk about Phragmites, the plant, why it's concerned, the control program that's been taking place in Kincardine over the years, a provincial initiative called Greens, and then some recommended next steps. On technology.
Janice, you're cutting in and out here a bit. I'm not sure
Mm,
what's going on there.
okay. Mm, that's unfortunate.
Oh.
Can you see my screen?
No, have you shared it?
Yeah.
Yeah, if you wanted to try and call in, and then I can share the presentation. She keeps popping off.
While we are waiting for Nicole to figure this all out, I'd like to welcome you into springtime. I'm a little bit late. It was 5:24 this afternoon. Spring officially started, so we get to enjoy a little bit of that. That it's spring, yes. That's all. No.
No.
No, I'm not sure what's happening. You're cutting in and out. I have your presentation here.
Mm.
Oh,
Most unfortunate.
oh, no, we can hear you now.
Do you want me to reschedule? Okay, I was gonna say, if you want, I can come in person to your next meeting and make sure it gets done. Everyone can hear.
We can actually hear you clear now. I'm sharing your screen if you want me to. I don't know why it didn't
Perfect.
work. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Just let me know when you want me to fly forward.
What do you see on your screen right now?
Sunset Drive before and after.
So perhaps we will provide opportunity for Dr. Gilbert to attend in person, if you can explain that to her. And then we can move on to our next agenda item, please.
Yes, we'll make arrangements with Dr. Gilbert later on. The second report from our department this evening, thank you and through the chair, regarding to the Kincardine Center for the Arts agreements. The agreements with the tenants at the Kincardine Center for the Arts expired December 31st, 2022. Existing tenants include the Grey Bruce Woodturners Guild, Kincardine Artists, Inc., Kincardine Scottish Festival and Highland Games, and the Kincardine Theatre Guild. Staff have worked with these groups to present the agreements that are in front of you this evening. These groups have been longstanding tenants of the Arts Center from the early 2000s, and their initial rents were established based on their not-for-profit status, facility usage, and a philosophy based on the municipality supporting the development and well-being of arts and culture groups within the community. The Kincardine Center for the Arts has become the arts hub within the municipality. A couple of notable changes from the previous agreements are, one, the current agreements reflect an annual rental increase of the Ontario CPI, which for 2023 accounts to 6.5%. And number two, they contain a clause stating that either party shall have the right to terminate this agreement without penalty upon giving the other party not less than 60 days notice.
So we have a resolution here on the floor, and I'll ask the clerk to read it, please.
Moved by Rory Kavanagh, seconded by Amanda Steinhoff Gray, that committee of the whole recommend that council pass bylaws to enter into individual 5-year rental space agreements at the Kincardine Center for the Arts with the following groups: the Grey Bruce Woodturners Guild, the Kincardine Artists, Inc., the Kincardine Scottish Festival and Highland Games, and the Kincardine Theatre Guild.
You've heard the motion. Are there any questions? Councillor Steinhoff Gray, please.
Through you, Chair. One of the things we've discussed, and I know it came up when we discussed the Blue Water trailers, was that we as a council needed to get our head around some of the use cases for these buildings, particularly when you look at the expenses associated with the roof repairs for the building that we're speaking about. And obviously discussions around moving our tourism office there. So one of the things that I was thinking is that we should only be doing this for a 1-year term, which gives us enough time to get our heads around what we should be doing without adversely disrupting anybody's activities. I too strongly align with the concept that we should be supporting the arts and culture. But I also wanted to better understand some of the items, like when I looked at joining the Kincardine Arts Group, the Center for the Arts, there's a jury process. So I wanted to make sure that it wasn't exclusionary, that all of the artists in our community can be a part of it. And what that jury process looks like, I'd like to have a little more detail on that. So I'm just saying right now for me, I'd be comfortable with a 1-year extension, but I have a lot of questions that aren't answered to be comfortable extending by 5 years.
We could do an amendment, or keep in mind that we do have a 60-day termination clause. Like, it's not an automatic 5. We would like to extend it for 5 years, primarily because if we do choose to carry it on, then it's good for 5 years. We don't have to administratively go through this every time. If there's any changes that council would like to make, there is wisely, Karen and her team have included that clause where we can terminate the clause after 60 days. We have all sorts of opportunity to discuss and plan and that, but I don't disagree. You can make that friendly amendment if you would like to, but there's a clause built in that would address that already. Councillor Steinhoff Gray, please.
The clause prior to 1.7, which allows us the 60-day termination, said that at the end of the agreement, if they were good tenants, they would get the next 5-year extension. So I'm assuming that section 1.7, but I hate to assume, would override the phrasing in 1.6.
Ms. Kiefer?
Through the chair, these agreements have all been vetted by a legal team. So we are of the understanding that you're correct, that 1.7 would supersede 1.6.
Counselor Inchberger, please.
Thank you through you, Mayor. In support of Councillor Steinhoff Gray's comments here, what she's proposing would also bring us in consistent with what we did with the bylaw for the Blue Water Trailer Park, where if I remember correctly, it did also have a 60-day either party notice, and yet we purposely put the duration of it at 1 year. And if working off the top of my head here, I think there was, like you said, even with a 1 year, if they are in good standing at the end of it and it continued, it wouldn't need a revision of the bylaw anyway. So it's not like there would have to be repetitive work done.
Would either of you like to propose a friendly amendment to that, to the resolution? No, not yet, because if we change the time frame, then we know what we're dealing with and we'll work with the next one.
Everybody hasn't discussed.
Councillor Steinhoff Gray, please.
So a friendly amendment to change the term to 1 year to align.
Okay, so the agreement at this point is the same, except that it would be a 1 year term rather than a 5-year term that we would be, that will be the amendment that we're going to vote on. So we should. Seconded by Councillor Inchberger. Let me address that first before any more discussion. Is there any more discussion regarding the amendment? Only the amendment, changing from a 5-year to a 1 year term, all the other clauses remaining the same. All in favor of the amendment, please indicate. Anyone opposed? And that's carried. Further discussion about the amended motion. Councillor Pranger, you had a question, I believe? Okay, Councillor Stewart.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. This is one of the things that I think that as a council, we need to understand priorities. It's just not this particular facility. We were talking during our budgets about multiple facilities. And I just want to make sure, because this is a huge undertaking if we start looking at each individual facility. And I just want to make sure that when we start talking about our strategic initiatives or strategic goals, is this the one we want to take on for 2023 or 2024, 2025? I think it's important. It's just a matter. This is a big piece of work and we'd have to set up committees and everything. And we'd look at all the facilities. So it's really just a comment. So when we get into strategic, is it 1, 2, or 3 of our goals? Thank you.
Councillor Hinchberger, please.
Thank you through you, Mayor. This fits into me as just a piece in a larger picture that I think we need to address. And I understand that at some point subsidization sounds like a harsh word, and at some level we need to subsidize some things. But the more I've been on council for 3 or 4 months, I'm becoming less and less confident that we have what I would call equitable subsidization going on in our community, where in some cases there's a preference that's generally in an unbiased manner being applied to existing uses of facilities and not looking at all the possible programs and services that we might support on behalf of the whole community.
Yep. Oh, clerk, CAO, please.
I'm just wondering if I could ask the director or the manager, in terms of your conversations with the other parties, do would you foresee any challenges with a one-year agreement? And that's one part. I also expect that even though the agreements say 1 year and it can continue on, it would still need to come back to council as an administrative practice every year, because that's how agreements are entered into. But if I could turn it over to you.
Yeah, thank you. And through you, Mr. Mayor, I can share with this group that through my experience with negotiating and agreements, groups really don't favor year agreements because it doesn't give them an opportunity for any sustainability. It allows them only to plan for those 12 months and only those 12 months. And in fairness of those groups that are working out of the hub, I'll call it for lack of a better word, I think they deserve more than a year. I think, the rationale for putting in the 6 months termination clause was so that we had that opportunity to bring this, 60 days termination clause was so that we could bring this back for an opportunity for discussions. I also caution this council that you have requested staff also to take a year look at the campground agreement. And with capacity, it will be very difficult for us to fulfill those obligations. My concern is that we're back to you in 12 months, if that's what you decide tonight. And there's very little change because we simply don't have the capacity to be doing all of this based on our existing business plan. So I just share that with council as well.
Councillor Stewart.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. I agree. I mean, it's a tough decision because they really haven't been functioning very well. A matter of fact, during the pandemic, we actually gave them rent free for 2 years, I believe, wasn't it? So this is sort of the first year they're going to be up and at 'em again and sort of working other than the storage facility. Maybe a friendly amendment to the friendly amendment, maybe we allow a 2-year sort of type. We just want some opportunity to take a look at this. And we got to be careful of our timing and the staff timing because we can't dump everything on staff and expect them to give us reports. So maybe on a friendly amendment, can I do that? We have to have a vote first. Okay, I'll make a motion to amend the friendly motion and move it from 1 year to 2 years. Is that correct, Jennifer? Thank you.
Is there a seconder for that motion? Councillor Prenger, is there any discussion regarding that motion? Yes, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor, through you. So I understand, I suppose, both sides and aspects, as I'm sure most of us sitting around the table do. Councillor Stewart's motion for looking at a 2-year period. I just wonder if I can ask through you, Mayor, for Councillor Stewart to explain what he'd like to see done in that 2-year period or what the hopes are if we're looking at that period of time. So I just want to know what the objective is.
So what part of our strategic plan sort of that the council Stewart is looking at? I agree with the question. Yeah. Councillor Stewart.
Through you, Mayor, and it's an excellent question. What I'm really worried about is that I've seen a lot of discussion with council during budget about facilities, PM, and all these kind of things and capital cost and who gets to rent this and who gets to rent that. I think it's so overdone, not overdone, it's overdue. And we need to take a look at everything. And this is part of the thing when we need to go, but I just don't know the timing effect. I see other priorities over this right now. So I'd like to at least give them a little bit of a benefit, let them have the 2 years. By that time in 2024, we can get right into the thick of things. And we'll probably be into it in the fall before we do the capital budget for 2024. But 5 years is almost too much. I mean, we always have a 60-day opt-out clause. But I don't like to give people 60 days unless I'd rather give them a year notice or something like that. But I think we need a little time to look at this. So I'm just asking council to give us a little time and not to put so much stress on our staff that they're going to have to do a full report on this, because this is going to take time, public engagement and all sorts of things. And I just don't think it's probably not my top 3 priorities for this year. Thank you.
Councillor Kennedy, Kavanaugh, Inchberger, and Prenger.
Okay, through the chair, these groups, I know we lost the Blue Water, but who are, you know, use that building a lot, but most of these groups are part of our community. And they're volunteers, you know, that's what we're talking about here. You know, it doesn't matter if it's here or Tiverton or Underwood or anywhere, that the volunteers are the key to success of all these buildings. And I don't really think you'd ever use that 60-day option unless you went through a real thorough review and you communicated with the groups and made sure that if someone had to move, that we were looking after, you know, making sure that they were solid, you know, to stay part of our communities. Because I think these people here we're talking about are an important part of our community. And that's why I'd like to see it for 5 years, because we have that 60-day in there that supersedes everything else. And I don't think we should drop it for 2 years. And I just really believe that we should look into a lot of these things and prioritize them. Like other people have said, I'm in agreement with that, but I'm not in agreement with going with less than 5 years at this time. Thank you.
So just following that through, the motion that's on the floor is 2 years. If you vote against that, it becomes 1 year. There is no other motion on the floor at this point, so I'll just leave that with you. Yeah, we're just talking about the 2-year term. Councillor Kavanaugh, please.
Thank you very much. And through the chair, having been on the other end of one of this, I want to say, I almost apologize for the amount of confusion we're causing to staff here. To negotiate one of these agreements one-on-one with one group is one thing, but then to have to turn around and redo it with 4 other groups that in principle are already okay with an existing agreement seems like a tremendous waste of time, especially when it seems like we're all arguing for the similar outcome or the similar goal, but with just the semantics of whether we implement it as a rolling X years or we do 5 with a plan to do, and if there's change in between. And so for that reason, I'm going to support Councillor Kennedy when he makes his motion to go back to the original motion of 5 years.
Councillor Hinchberger?
Thank you, through you, Mayor. I want to throw an idea out there that relates to the burden or the potential burden on staff, but I need the CAO to check me here if I'm incorrect. One of the things we've been kind of carrying in the back of my mind, and I'm sure others' minds from the budget, was in the finance report about the concept of doing a service level review. And I'm wondering whether a service level review, if it had an acceptable scope, might encompass what we're actually looking to do here, that community services in a sense is providing buildings to select groups at what seems to be favorable terms. And we have basically a general question about whether we're providing that service to the community in a efficient and equitable manner. Like could be something that logically could fall in an appropriately scoped service level review?
Through you, Mayor. Yes, a service delivery review that focused on facilities and the use of them to deliver particular services would absolutely be something that could be scoped. However, we would not likely be able to undertake that ourselves. We would be looking for external resources to help with that process, and that's what's not in the budget.
I follow up. I think my understanding from the financial report produced for the last budget meeting is whatever service delivery delivery review, SDR, would require external help to do it. Is that correct? Okay.
Councillor Pranger, please.
Worthwhile.
Thank you, through the chair. Apologize in advance. I have quite a complicated comment / not question, but comments. So I actually, I kind of feel and understand and I don't disagree with anything really that's been said so far by any of the councilors or staff. I understand Mr. Kavanaugh's concerns with renegotiating and it being potentially a waste of time. That's unfortunate here because I think at least for me, what it comes down to is that I don't necessarily want to kick anyone out or terminate their lease or not let them use it. And the 60-day termination clause, and I don't have any legal training, so maybe I'm wrong here, but it's a termination clause. It does not give us the opportunity to revise the contract and give them 60 days notice of revising the contract. And I would like the opportunity to provide them with a revised agreement if we so choose to utilize the building slightly differently or allow someone else in there. And I think to Councillor Hinchberger's comments, we might want to do that after we have a review like that done. So I don't want to have to wait 5 years to have to do that. And maybe the 1 year was a little too short. 2 years seems a little more reasonable to me. But either way, I think I would have to support reducing it from 5, but not to scare anyone and to think that we're kicking them out or that they can't use it anymore, or that the money they've put into it so far is going to be wasted because they won't be able to go back that year, next year. I fully support the arts and cultures and the groups that use it currently. I just want to make sure that we are moving forward after we review their use and it's efficiently used, and that we can make changes if we need to.
Councillor Steinhoff Gray, please.
Thank you for putting that so succinctly, Councillor Pranger, because my amendment wasn't meaning that they wouldn't be there anymore necessarily. It was more that we need to consciously look at it and make a aligned decision on how we're going to do this. And to Councillor Hinchberger's point, making sure we have a fair and equitable policy in effect so that when we do get into subsidization, there's equal opportunity to the various community groups that are hoping to leverage our buildings. And that's obviously one of our long-term goals, is better leveraging those buildings so that we can open them up to more community groups, so that if we are paying to maintain them, there's a tangible benefit to our community. And that's a big thing for me. So again, I am comfortable with the 2-year, or I don't mind reverting myself necessarily, understanding there's the 60-day notice, but like Councillor Pranger, I would never want to execute that. That's not very much notice on a change of plan. Seems very abrupt to me, but not to say that there would be a change of plan, but I guess my question would be for grant applications, is the limitation of a 1 year or 2 year going to impact some of the long-term grants that these groups are levying for? Because in that case, I would revert myself. So if you could provide me some content that way, I'd appreciate it.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I really can't provide comment on that. It would be dependent on what they were applying for, and in some cases they can't apply because they don't own the facility. So there's many variables that go into the grant applications, depending on what they're applying for.
Councillor Kennedy and then Deputy Mayor Clark, please.
Yeah, I'd like to, and I really appreciate it. I think this has been really well thought out, but I still think it should be 5 years with that 60-day out clause. And I think we can still do all the things everybody wants. So I'd like to make a friendly amendment if I'm allowed. I can't do that. Vote in the 2 first. Okay. No, thank you.
Deputy Mayor, please.
Thank you, Mayor.
Last comment, by the way.
Thank you, Mayor. And I was going to say not to unnecessarily prolong this discussion, but I think both Councillor Pranger and Councillor Steinhoff Gray really valid points concerning one. I think 60 days, the organization would have a reasonable expectation that any notice period would be longer than that, irrespective of what the contract would say. Having said that, I do think, having listened to Councillor Stewart in terms of, and Councillor Hinchberger in terms of what the hopes would be, my viewpoint is 2 years probably just isn't sufficient realistically. It's not in the budget to carry out an SDR this year. So you're looking at next year at the earliest, and it's a substantial undertaking. So I think I would have to say that I'd be voting against 2 years and reverting back to a 5-year period.
So if 2 years is defeated, we're not reverting back to 5 years, we're reverting back to 1 year. Because we had a motion on the floor. It wasn't an amendment. It was a motion which is different than a friendly amendment.
And so basically what's happened now is that right now, the motion says a 1-year term because you made an amendment and you changed that motion to a 1-year term. So now you're going to vote on a 2-year term. So if you turn a 2-year term down, it goes back to a 1-year term. So somebody could do an amendment to change it back to a 5-year term. We could do that, yes.
Might I ask what we started with here? Good, just to be clear? Was, 5 years, that's where we started, okay. So the motion on the floor is that we have the term of the contract renegotiated for a 2-year period. All in favor of that motion, please indicate. And all those opposed? And 2 years just carried. So that was the friendly amendment that we just voted on. So now we will send this back. So
Someone wants to.
it had been 5 years. We took it down to 1. And then there was 2. So we are on. So I'd ask the clerk to read the motion. No, there'll be no more discussion. We'll get this figured out.
Okay, so what you're voting on now would be that the committee of the whole recommend that council pass bylaws to enter into individual 2-year rental space agreements at the Kincardine Arts Center for the following groups: the Grey Bruce Woodturners, Kincardine Artists Inc., Kincardine Scottish Festival and Highland Games, and the Kincardine Theatre Guild.
All in favor of the motion? All those opposed? And that was carried. That would be a 2-year. Accountability and transparency policy. From our CAO, please. Councillor Kavanaugh.
Can I request a 5-minute recess, please? Sure. Yeah, if that's acceptable.
No, no, it's not. This is the next item is the committee of the whole discussion regarding the funding agreement, not the legal advice. A 5-minute break. Go ahead. Pardon me? Yeah, it's already been approved. Away you go. Nope, or we can't start. All right. Welcome back to the Committee of the Whole meeting. We are addressing 7.4 accountability and transparency policy as presented by our CAO, Ms. Belchamber Glazier.
Yes, so accountability and transparency policy. So you've read the report. This is a policy that is mandated by the Municipal Act under Section 270, along with a number of other policy requirements. This is one that the municipality currently has, and as part of our review process, it's one of the first ones we are looking at for review. As it hasn't been reviewed for a few years, and there are things that are worth updating to it. So there have been additional things that have been mandated since the time that the policy was first implemented. That includes things like codes of conduct. Those are now mandated. The public registry of members' declarations of pecuniary interest is now a mandatory section. So these are other facets which help to demonstrate the responsibility of municipalities to be transparent and to also be accountable for their decision making. And I look at this policy as one of those overarching ones. So the way you look at your strategic plan for council, this is one of those pieces of the policy puzzle that helps you to lay out the framework, and a lot of other things fit underneath that. And you could see that through the fact that it deals not only with governance, but it also deals with financial administration as well. So it's a little update that we're providing for your consideration. I did have a conversation with a few council members, and one of the council members made a recommendation for a nice wording tweak at the end. So I think she's going to speak to that. But if you have other questions with respect to the policy, I'm open to any of those at this time or later.
Clerk, please.
This is moved by Doug Kennedy, seconded by Beth Blackwell, that Committee of the Whole recommend to Council that bylaw 2007-354, being a bylaw to adopt an accountability and transparency policy, be repealed. And further, that Council approve the updated accountability and transparency policy updated as of March 6, 2023, as presented.
You've heard the resolution. Are there any questions? Councillor Blackwell.
Thank you. Through you, I spoke with our CAO earlier today. I just found the last sentence in the policy just a little bit not clear. So we kind of collaborated on an update to that, which would be Kincardine is committed to conducting its business in an open and transparent manner. The municipality will demonstrate this commitment by continually seeking out best practice and ensuring that organizational policies, procedures, and practices promote accountability and ethical conduct.
That's a friendly.
So we're seeking a friendly amendment to the clause. So the mover and seconder, who were? Doug and Beth, are you in favor of that amendment to the motion? If anybody says no, I'm gonna go down there and slap me silly. So, okay. All right, is there any further discussion regarding this transparency and accountability policy? All in favor? And that's approved. The nurse practitioner funding agreement. There will be a part of this that will be enclosed. This portion is discussing the broad agreement itself, but there will be some legal considerations at a closed meeting later on this evening. CAO, please.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. So this was upon direction of council early in its term and following deliberation even from previous term, from what I understand, having a nurse practitioner was included in the budget for this year. And we have been working with the family health team to come to an agreement along with legal counsel on both sides. So the agreement has been accepted by the Kincardine Family Health team. And the reason to go into closed session is just in the event that council has any considerations or questions that they'd like to get legal counsel advice on, as this is a new agreement that the municipality is entering into, a new form. We haven't had this before. So it covers, I think you've had the opportunity to review it. It covers what it is that council directed staff to do with the 0.6% of an FTE for a nurse practitioner, which means there could be 2 full-time nurse practitioners at the family health team to support the community.
So as you commented, this fulfills all the requirements, all the considerations the council provided staff prior to the negotiation period. Okay. Are there any further questions regarding this? Councillor Stewart, please.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. I just need a clarification, if you don't mind. I know that we have a budget number for this already, and we did 60% or 0.6, but how does that impact? Like, we're not always going to pay them 0.6 of the budget because they haven't hired anyone today. So we're going to pay proportionally 0.6. Great. That's all I need to do.
Councillor Blackwell, please.
Thank you. Through you, I remember the initial presentation from the family health team, and there was some comment at that point that they may also approach Huron-Kinloss for some of these contributions. I'm just looking in the agreement. I only noticed that it said that basically Kincardine's portion may be reduced if funding came from the ministry, but I'm wondering whether I expect that it would also say if funding came from somewhere else, that it would reduce our portion as well.
So with the notion of there being an additional funding agency besides the municipality or the provincial government is not really one that we expected, but if we want to get legal advice on that with respect to the agreement, we can when we go into closed session.
So we'll address this motion after we come out of closed session. We'll be in council at that point. We'll have received legal counsel, and we'll address this as a motion at that time. 177 Harbor Street lease agreement, future steps, also our CAO department.
Thank you. And through you, Mayor, this is the request following the potential sale of an estate property, 177 Harbor Street, where the municipality approximately 20 years ago had entered into a lease arrangement following some coming to an agreement about some property negotiation that needed to happen over a dispute. So the way that they resolved this was sell a portion and then lease another portion. So the year of the lease agreement was 20 years. It comes to an end next year. However, there is a transaction that's happening with the property overall, and they're requesting that we assign the lease for that last year to the new property owner. The expectation being that if this is the direction that council provides as what is requested, that following that, we would then start to look at the encroachment policy as the way to deal with this particular type of a property. But this is, thank you. This is another one where you have the opportunity to get some legal advice, and we would expect you to deal with it after closed session.
Any questions regarding this agreement? And as Jeline commented, we'll follow the same process. We'll address this coming out of closed and open council session. Mayor's update. One comment. Our reception staff has asked that if you have your business cards with your name on it, would you please leave some at the entrance? Frequently there are folks come in to do any work and they say, well, I need to get a hold of Councillor so-and-so or the mayor, and they'll say, here's your card. But when you received your cards, you got them all. So they're just asking for some of those cards back. You know, if you can, you could leave them perhaps with the clerk, or you didn't have anything to do, did you? No. Okay. Just that comment. All right. Mayor's already left his cards. Items list, consent agenda. Items listed under consent agenda are considered routine and acted under one motion unless there are any questions or items that any councillors would like pulled from the consent agenda for future consideration. Councillor Kennedy, please.
Yeah, just to, maybe we can't do this tonight, but 8.3F, the spring clean, you know, with staff here, and, you know, it's really good of Bar Down, you know, community involvement to get involved in that. And can we talk about that, or is that something that just to update the public and so everybody is familiar with what's going on here coming up? Please.
Director, would you like to speak to that this evening, or would you like to say, or Eek. Karen, would you like to speak to this, or would you like to send a report back at a different time? How would you like to address this?
Mayor Craig, I'd like to talk about it right now if I could. Thank you. And through the chair this evening, this report is intended to share information with council and the public about Spring Clean Week taking place from April the 17th to April the 23rd throughout the municipality of Kincardine. Spring Clean Week is an invitation to all residents to help clean up our neighborhoods and public spaces after the snow melts. The municipality is partnering with Bar Down, who have been actively involved in previous beach and community cleanup activities. Volunteers will be able to register and pick up cleanup kits from the Davidson Center customer service staff. The kits will include garbage bags, gloves, and a map that will identify locations where garbage bags from this cleanup may be left, and as well the map will outline the different zones or areas that can be cleaned throughout the municipality during this week. Park staff will pick up the garbage, and the garbage will either be weighed or counted so that we can report back on how much was collected. There will also be a goods exchange day on Saturday, April the 22nd. This is an opportunity for residents to leave items they no longer have a use for at the end of their driveway, and other residents may pick it up as it may be useful to them. Some examples of appropriate items for this include furniture, small appliances, doors, sinks, windows, art, books, tools, sporting goods, etc. Just a reminder, though, that there will not be a special garbage collection on Goods Exchange Day, so whatever is not taken by 6 o'clock that day must be brought back in. So please note that this is our very first promotion of Spring Clean Week and the Goods Exchange Day, and there will be more promotions and media releases on both as details are confirmed closer to the event.
Sorry, who else had their hand up? Councillor Steinhoff Gray, please.
I had a few items that I want to pull out, but I'd like them dealt with probably at a different another meeting so that I don't push our schedule out. But I'm looking at section 8.3 Bravo, which was the Development Services Year-End Report. Specifically the residential development opportunities, which I would like to look into in perception of the servicing agreements and how long those stand based on the possible development areas. Just a few things that tweaked me from those items. The other one that I wanted to pull out is section 8.5 Mike, so M, which is the Municipality of North Perth School Bus Stop Arm Cameras. It's an issue here too, where people are driving through the bus arms of school buses. My aunt's a bus driver. It happens to her all the time. And she'll sometimes not open the bus doors because she's pretty confident a car is going to blow through that stop sign. So she waits. But it's a lot.
Excuse me,
Oops.
did you want this brought back in another time?
Yes,
Then-
sorry.
Then you don't need to talk about it.
Okay,
It'll come back another
I
time.
apologize.
No, it's okay.
It's near and dear to my heart because
We- we-
children's
We
safety is
just don't need
important.
to talk about it twice, that's all.
That's okay. And then the last one that I wanted to bring back, just because of the amount of attention, is section 8.5 Echo. So Joseph Adley and Terry Boyd Control Gate. That particular letter I'd like to bring back. Thank you.
Councillor Hinchberger.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. This is actually just a clarification. 8.3 Echo, which is the municipal policy review, no, 8.3. Yes, that the CAO and I had a discussion today. There's a table in it in the policy review for phase 1, year 1 overview and inventory that implies that the first phase of policies for this year have already been brought through and completed. It's actually should read that it's in progress because we were going to see a revision to the budget policy in 2023 that would help us for the 2024 budget year, and she indicated that was the case. So clarification that although it says completed, there will be more policies being brought to council this year.
Councillor Stewart.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. Mostly just comments. I agree with my fellow Councillor Steinhoff Gray about pulling 2022 Development Service Year-End Report. I also like to take this opportunity to say that our CBO did a great job on A, B, and C, and thank you. And,
Yes.
there'll be lots of discussions. So well done, Dwayne. So the other thing is that I believe Councillor Steinhoff Gray asked to pull 85A, the MIC one. Did you ask that one to be pulled, or was that just my imagination?
It's not been commented on
Okay.
yet.
Anyways, what I'm going to say about that one, the CO and I had a brief discussion, and there's another serious meeting, I believe, on March 29th. So we'll wait until we hear back from that one. So I won't be pulling that one either. And I agree with the other one, the central, the control gate. That's the 85E, or as military people, Echo, which I like. They've asked to pull that one. I guess one of the questions I would ask is, I know that we're going to get a report back on the gate. Do we have a time for that one yet? Thank you.
Yep. So that one is scheduled to come back, but I suspect that's one that may take more than one meeting. So there are some policies where, like this evening or last week, where it's one meeting, the council is probably adequate time to have the discussion, but other policy considerations where you might want a little more time to make the decision. So this is the policy where we expect perhaps we'll come back to council with the feedback from stakeholders particular to the gate, like the OPP, other emergency service providers, but you will also likely want to hear a little bit from, or have the opportunity to hear from, members of the public that are directly impacted by status quo or change. So this is, and the clerk can correct me if I'm wrong, Madam Clerk, I believe this is on our agenda for the April, we're in March, so April meeting, for the second meeting of the month. Yeah.
Just to follow up, I guess we might be looking even at some delegations with that one too. And I agree, having two meetings would allow people from the public to speak. So I fully support that. Thank you.
Councillor Blackwell, please.
Thank you. I talked to the clerk about this earlier, but I'd like to pull 8.5J. There's a resolution from the Association of Municipalities specifically asking the provincial government to invest in solutions for homelessness. They've asked it to be passed prior to the provincial budget, so it's a bit of a time sensitive one.
So I bet you'd like us to support that resolution this evening, wouldn't you?
I would very much so. Thank you.
Councillor Pranger, please. Did you have your hand up? Oh, okay. Sorry. Councillor Kennedy?
Can I second that, what Councillor Blackwell brought up?
We will do that when we come back into council. All right.
Just a clarification, they asked for feedback a while ago. Didn't we give them feedback already? I'm not sure if we did.
We've expressed our concerns regarding homelessness in many fashions, and this is just one more.
Okay, I thought we already gave them feedback.
Clerk, please.
Okay, so this is moved by Bill Stewart, seconded by Jennifer Pranger, that this committee of the whole adjourn at looks like 6:54 PM.
All in favor? All right, so we're back in council under 10.0 matters arising from committee of the whole, approval of the consent agenda. Clerk, please.
Okay. This is moved by Mike Hinchberger, seconded by Andrea Clark, and that council approve the recommendations contained in the consent agenda dated March 13th, 2023, and direct staff to proceed with all necessary administrative actions except for 8.5J, which is the AMO policy update, and that will come as a motion tonight. 8.3, 2022 financial report, building services, that will come back to a future meeting. 8.5 LM, Municipality of North Perth, school bus stop arm cameras, that will come to a future meeting. And 8.5 Joseph Adley and Terry Boyd, control gate, that will also come to a future meeting.
All in favor? That's carried. 10.2, 3, 4, and 5 are tabled until the staff has opportunity to present the council's wishes in a new lease arrangement. 10.6 accountability and transparency bylaw. Clerk, please.
This is moved by Doug Kennedy, seconded by Beth Blackwell, that the accountability and transparency policy bylaw as amended be deemed to be read a first, second, and third time, finally passed and numbered as bylaw 2023-040.
All in favor? And that is carried. 10.7, call to the provincial government to end homelessness in Ontario.
So this is moved by Beth Blackwell and seconded by Bill Stewart. And so it's whereas the homeless crisis is taking a devastating toll on families and communities, undermining a healthy and prosperous Ontario. Whereas the homelessness crisis is the result of the underinvestment and poor policy choices of successive provincial governments. Whereas homelessness requires a range of housing, social services, and health solutions from government. Whereas homelessness is felt most at the local level of government and the residents that they serve. Whereas municipalities and district social administration boards are doing their part, but do not have the resources, capacity, or tools to address this complex challenge. And whereas leadership and urgent action is needed from the provincial government on an emergency basis to develop a resource and implement a comprehensive plan to prevent, reduce, and eliminate and ultimately end homelessness in Ontario. Therefore, be it resolved that the municipality of Kincardine calls on the provincial government to urgently acknowledge that homelessness in Ontario is a social, economic, and health crisis, commit to ending homelessness in Ontario, work with AMO and a broad range of community, health, Indigenous, and economic partners to develop, resource, and implement an action plan to achieve this goal. And further, that a copy of this motion be sent to the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, the Minister of Children, Community and Social Services, the Minister of Health, and to the Association of Municipalities of Ontario.
So you've heard the motion. Is there any discussion? All in favor? And that's carried. Members of council, general announcements. Councillor Hinchberger. Councillor Pranger.
I have nothing tonight. Thank you.
Counselor Stewart.
Unfortunately, I do, and it's sad news that one of our pillars of our community passed away this week, Ken Jackson from Ken Jackson Construction. I've known Ken since 73. He's given countless amount of time and effort to our community. A lot of times the service groups asked him for doing some work. You never got an invoice. There is a celebration of life at the Legion between 1 and I think 4 or 5 on Friday, if you'd like to attend, but he will be he'll be missed, and all his condolences to his family. So it's unfortunate. His health just failed on the Tuesday night, so we lost a valuable community member. Thank you.
Counselor Blackwell.
Thank you. I'm going to try and keep this brief, but that's not usually my forte. So I wanted to acknowledge that tomorrow is Lots of Socks Day. March 21st is World Down Syndrome Day. And I was, yes, as Counselor Stewart is nicely showing off. I was lucky enough to know Amy Boudreas, who was a woman with Down syndrome who brought this celebration to our community several years ago. And she had asked staff at Community Living that, you know, do you think people around town would wear socks? And, you know, I'd like people to put my picture up in the windows because I matter. And so the first year when we went out into the community, I think about 20 to 25 businesses, you know, really took on the charge and decorated their windows. And I checked in with staff today that there's over 100 this year. So what people may not know is this is pretty uniquely Kincardine. It is celebrated around the world, but this is actually, you know, the way that it's celebrated here in Kincardine with the window displays and the competition is unique. And it is one of the largest celebrations of World Down Syndrome Day in Canada. And, you know, some people have said to me, oh, like, well, wearing socks, it's just kind of silly. But why it matters is, you know, the first year that we did it, there had been several families that had had children, babies born with Down syndrome. And I think there was a lot of trepidation about what those babies' futures might look like. And I remember speaking to them after the first year, and they just said, like, this community is not just going to you know, tolerate our children, but is going to actually celebrate them and welcome them. And that's made a huge difference in their lives. And we actually have had folks move to Kincardine with Down syndrome specifically because of the way that this community celebrates all of our members. So I just really want to thank all of council. I can see all your socks poking out from under the tables there, and just about how special this day is to me personally and to our community. So thank you for that.
Counselor Hinchberger, you don't even have socks on. Don't show us your, oh, you do. Good for you.
You read what they said?
No, Counselor Kennedy, please.
Yeah, through the chair, just yesterday at our curling club, or on Saturday in our curling club, Special Olympics hosted some teams from out of the area. We were good hosts bringing them here, but we won. You know, the top 2 teams. And these kids, like, you know, the excitement in that arena on Saturday was something else. You know, my wife was helping organize it. So, and these 2 teams might get a chance, maybe one of them, to go to Calgary in 2024. So it's pretty exciting. And Jen was there helping too. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Counselor Steinhoff Gray, please.
Thank you. I just wanted to use this moment actually to tell council that I plan on a notice of motion. So I will be bringing forward at some point in the near future a motion around the tree bylaw. So thank you.
Counselor Kavanaugh.
I can't top that, so nothing tonight. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor.
Nothing.
CAO.
So next meeting, right? April the 3rd, we're going to be streaming council meetings on YouTube. So that way the public will have another option for how they can access our meetings. We'll be streaming them as well as the feeds that are on Rogers and Bruce Telecom. I think we were testing this evening. Was it? Yes, perhaps. Two other things that we already spoke about this at the last council update, but just as a reminder, the summer day camp registration starts tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. So line up if you need to line up. And the Recreation Expo, for last time we were updating to say registrations were due. Now just a reminder that 2023 Spring Expo will be tomorrow night between 6 and 8 for a variety of different organizations to talk about what they have to offer.
Clerk, please.
Moved by Jennifer Pranger, seconded by Mike Hinchberger, that council move into closed meeting for the purpose of considering advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose. 177 Harbor Street and nurse practitioner agreement pursuant to section 239(2) of the Municipal Act 2001 as amended, and further that council return to regular open meeting upon completion.
All in favor of the motion? And that's carried. So there'll be a moment till we get TVs
Hi.
turned off, people allowed to leave and go home.
Hi, Tammy. Do you want to just talk so we can make sure that it's not too loud?
No, I'm good.
Okay,
At this
perfect.
time, can you hear me there?
Is that? Yeah, do you want to just say a little something else so we can make sure you're not too loud in here?
Hello, everyone. Nice to see you tonight.
Amazing. Okay, perfect. Just give us a couple minutes here.